So regarding the term Judeo-Christian, it is very important to insist on the use of it because not only is it an academic term referring to the Old and the New Covenants, the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible, as well as the New Testament, but it also serves to recontextualize the essence of Christianity, because over the centuries, the Gentiles uprooted Christianity from its own roots. In the first century, and this is in the book of Acts in the New Testament, Acts 15, there were Jews who struggled to commune with the Gentiles. Jewish Christians, actually the first Christians were all Jews. They were temple Jews who were messianic. Christianity, the word Christian means messianic. Christos in Greek is the same word as Mashiach in Hebrew. So Christian means messianic. So the ancient Orthodox Christians were messianic in essence. But eventually, when the Gentiles began to come into the church, converting to Christianity, the Jewish Christians, who were law-observing Jews, struggled to commune with them because the Gentiles had pagan practices. They did not follow the dietary laws, for example, or any of the Old Testament commandments. And therefore, in the book of Acts, the Synod, or the Holy Synod, the apostles assembled, and they decreed that the Gentiles were not to be burdened by the law, the Jewish law, in order to become Christians, which means that they are not required to follow the Jewish commandments, the Torah, in order to become Christians. But the Jews who were Christians, the Christian Jews, the Messianic Jews, were to continue observing the law because that's their tradition. But over time, what happened was that the Gentiles dominated the church and started accusing anyone who was of Jewish origin of Judaizing. The actual Judaizers were the Christian Jews who were requiring or wanting to force the Gentile converts to Christianity to follow the Jewish law. So the apostles said, no, the Gentiles are not required to follow the Jewish law to become Christians. There's only about 5 laws that they have to follow, such as abstaining from blood, abstaining from sexual immorality, and so on and so forth. It's very similar to the Noahide laws in Judaism. So the Judaizers, the original Judaizers, were the ones requiring or wanting to force the Gentile converts to Christianity because they were Jews to follow the Jewish law. And to solve this problem, the apostles decreed that the Gentiles are not required to do so. But over time, the Gentiles dominated the church and then in turn started to force the Jews to abandon completely their own identity, their entire tradition. In order to be considered a Christian, it's as if you have to completely abandon and abrogate your Jewish identity or your Jewish tradition. Whereas the Gentile converts were incorporating their own pagan nationalities and pagan practices and Christianizing them. So they eventually uprooted the church from its own Jewish foundations, to the extent that being a Jew, as a Christian in the church, began to be seen as antithetical to Christianity itself. So what we're seeing now, the rejection of the term Judeo-Christian, is a pagan mentality. It is the dominance of the Gentile psychology at play. It views Jewishness as something to be rejected altogether. And it views Christianity as having nothing to do with ancient Judaism.